Today we are drawing characters from the Warhammer 40k universe.
And if you don't know what Warhammer is, that's fine, because we don't either.
So the only thing that I really know about Warhammer is Space Marines, which are these big, like, space sci-fi warriors who are just ironclad in armor.
Our producers have given us some descriptions, and we're going to try and draw creatures from that, which will be interesting because we don't actually have much like preloaded information on what these characters look like. What does 40k even refer to? The Great Unclean One.
Yeah, that's your character.
What? I thought I was drawing aliens. Gargantuan, immensely fat humanoids, hot entrails dribbling out of huge tears in their enormous bellies. Supported by two impossibly small and atrophied-looking legs, swollen heads with enormous stag-like antlers, suppurating, sore-covered bodies. These are really good words. Host to every disease ever catalogued by man or daemon, and their stench can be detected from miles away. Enormous blades and maces, immense plague flails, each one dripping with pestilence. Despite their completely bloated and putrid appearance, they're gregarious and even sentimental. And they smile with pure-hearted benevolence, and their long, pus-covered tongues dangle from their toothy, face-splitting grins. Wow, okay, this did not go where I was expecting.
Have fun with that one.
This is great.
It's gonna be really pretty artwork, I can tell. So my character is the Emperor of Mankind. So this Emperor is technically a shapeshifter, so he comes in many forms, but this is the description that I was given, which I think was found in one of the many, many lore books from Warhammer 40k. The upper part of the building was fashioned in the form of an immense chair, ringed about by the sparkling conduits and pulsing energy fields. Seated in the chair was the Emperor, garbed in golden armor, his head bowed with eyes slightly shut in fierce concentration. Waves of purple and blue energy flowed across his skin, a miniature lightning storm playing above his furrowed brow. That's cool, he's giving like Zeus vibes. Giant eagle sat atop its back, two-headed, glaring at Korax with ruby eyes. The Emperor's eyes were open, glittering orbs of gold that bored into Korax's soul. The Emperor stood, his armor melting away into the wisps of golden threads to be replaced by robes of flowing silver that cascaded from his body like an argent waterfall. "Is that your true face?" asked Korax. "I have no such thing," replied the Emperor. "I have worn a million faces over the millennia, according to need or whim."
Who wrote this? I like it.
This is very dramatic. I love him. Very cool. I don't know how I'm going to draw shapeshifting though. There is at least two forms. There's at least 3 or 4 forms that
No, a million. He's had a million faces. You have to draw a million.
Oh, I'm not drawing a million faces today. I'm sorry. So now that we have our descriptions, I think we're ready to get started.
Fat, smelly creatures.
Emperor of Mankind. Let's do it.
The biggest thing that tickled me was just the sheer incongruence between this character's appearance and their personality. Like, those first 2 paragraphs were about how, like, disgusting it is. And then it gets to, like, despite their appearance, they are sentimental in nature, and they smile with pure-heartedness. And I was like, how am I even gonna make this friendly in the slightest? Like, that smile is only gonna make it more sinister, isn't it, right? And I found that the trick was just in the positioning of the eyes. That's all it was. When I first did the silhouette, the eyes were slanting down towards the middle, and that just made it look typically evil.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was kind of like change the slant to make his brow go up in the middle, and suddenly he just looked like this globby guy who just wants to be your friend.
Yeah, it's like the dopey eyes.
Yeah, that's the first time I've drawn something like this. I know how to draw a standard human body. I know how to draw like a sinewy, skinny monster. But something with this much mass, that's new to me.
It's a very particular body type. You can kind of get away with exaggerating his weight.
Yeah. Look, this is the reason I used to only draw fantasy creatures as a kid, because no one could tell me the anatomy was wrong. You need him to behave according to the laws of gravity, because if you just have like bloatedness, but it doesn't seem to sag in the right places, then you just get Baymax, who's just like puffy, but like just outwards, not downwards. The fact that he's meant to have tiny little legs already accentuates like how much mass he has up top. But to reflect that, I had to put his feet really far apart, because he's obviously going to need a wide stance to support everything that's above it.
Yeah, and so he can balance, I guess. I think it's good to have a bit of balance, even if your character is quite fat.
Yeah, there needs to be contrast. Like, if his legs were also like huge and tree trunky, then it would just be too much mass everywhere.
Yeah, your eyes wouldn't know where to look, basically.
Exactly. Something else I had to give a lot of thought to early on was the pose and the composition. Because not only does he have this huge flail and a cleaver and guts hanging out, he's also got antlers, so just so many areas of the canvas are getting used up. He could either be like your best friend and he would defend you to the death.
He looks like he could accidentally drop it and like slice a toe up.
I feel like that's how he sliced his guts open. Like he was reaching down and then like he tripped.
Oh, he was like trying to wave, but he dropped his
He was
cleaver and he
trying to
cut his
wave.
belly.
As a hobby artist, I've never had the pressure of delivering art on tight deadlines or even needing to finish a piece if I didn't feel like it. And being on this channel is what has really pushed me to think about my workflow. I had to really examine what I was doing, where I was doubling up and putting in unnecessary effort, and like how I could just trim the fat and get it down to like a really slick workflow.
I like the pun that you used there, trim the fat.
So just within like the last half a week, I've been trying to start more with just silhouettes. I've been looking at people like Anthony Jones, aka Robot Pencil, and Hardy Fowler. But it seems to click more with what I just want to do, like in my gut.
How did you find going silhouette first as opposed to line work first?
You know that point in your artwork when you're past the ugly phase and your piece starts to sing?
Yeah.
And you start to feel comfortable, you're like, yes, I'm like over the worst of it.
The best part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. So this process got me there so much quicker.
I know I really like to start dark and work towards lights as well, because there is kind of a point where you keep adding light, and then there is a point where it becomes too much, and then you're like, okay, that's where I'll stop. And it's a really easy way to make sure that your values are looking good. Now, before we move on to the next artwork, I want to tell you guys a little bit about this bag over here. This is the Carry-All Studio that has been designed by Jazza, which is the perfect tool to carry all of your art supplies. It comes in a small size and also a large size, but if you guys want to get both, you can get a loaded bundle, which includes both bags for a discount, $100 worth of art supplies, and a signed print by Jazza himself. It is available in a variety of colors and also comes with a bunch of straps so that you can wear this bag as a backpack, a messenger bag, or even just like a briefcase. And it contains pouches for your laptops, your pens, your drink bottles, your chargers, everything that you need to carry around on a daily basis. It is currently being funded on Kickstarter, so if you guys are interested, check out the link in the description below. So Ariel, that's your artwork. How do you feel about it?
Great. I still don't know anything about Warhammer, but that fantastic description makes me want to know more.
It's an awesome character. I really like it, but yeah, again, I don't know if it would fit in the Warhammer universe.
I don't think he would fit into anything.
So I'm just about to start mine, and I have only read the description, but the description is even more confusing than your one because he's a shapeshifter, so I literally don't even know what this character looks like.
Isn't there someone in the studio who knows like a lot about Warhammer?
I'm Dave from Tabletop Time, and we work in the same studio, and Tabletop Time is all about miniatures and wargaming, and Warhammer is a huge part of what we do. So you said Warhammer. I want a Warhammer.
Okay.
Yes. Did you hear us all the way from downstairs?
I'm always listening.
Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Ariel and I are Warhammer beginners. We don't know anything about Warhammer.
It's a very deep universe. I'm happy to help.
Can you just tell me who the Emperor is?
So it's called Warhammer 40k because it's set after the year 40,000. It's far in the future. And the Emperor of Mankind actually you need to really think about the history of the future setting. So the Emperor sits in his throne, a corpse rotting in a chair. How he got there is actually a matter that's covered. These armies, and they were led by his Primarch sons. These were his sons made from his genetic material. Emperor and his partner Malkador basically tried to conquer the entire galaxy. The first of the Emperor's sons actually betrayed him, and that created the civil war known as the Horus Heresy. Fight with Horus, the Emperor was actually put on the Golden Throne, where he would remain for 10,000 years, ruling the Emperor basically as a giant lighthouse beacon that allowed their ships to navigate the entire Imperium. Suffice is to say, it's all going to be a lot simpler when Henry Cavill's TV show series comes out.
If you're interested in Warhammer, check out our full collaboration with the Warhammer experts over at Tabletop Time. I've created concept art for this epic, custom Space Marine character. Dave and the team have converted this concept art into a fully painted real-life miniature sculpture. The sculpture is incredible and I couldn't resist. I've done a full painting of this character. We're all stoked with the results. Check out Tabletop Time for the full amazing project. So I received this really complicated description for my character, the Emperor of Mankind, and it portrayed him in two distinctly different ways. The first way was that he was sitting on a throne, kind of recharging, I guess, with this angry, furrowed brow. His head is lowered, he's concentrating. There's a cloud above his head with lightning. But then the second description of him has him sort of elevated from the chair and descending down a staircase, covered in fabric. So there were two very different poses that I could go with. But instead of picking one, I decided to do a little bit of both.
It's so good.
And I think having a symmetrical composition also could help with the duality of this character. So having half of the canvas, him in one state, and the second half of the canvas in the other state. Almost as if you could split the composition in half and have two completely separate drawings, but also having them work seamlessly together.
I think it's my new favorite pose. Gonna be how I pose all my characters from now on.
There was a word in the description that said that his metal melts into this fabric, and I thought that was a really pretty way of describing it. I'm sure it wasn't meant literally, but I thought that having some like really drippy sort of fabric would kind of pay ode to this description and also look really cool.
I was like, oh, characters like that always feel so impersonal. They're just overwhelmingly armor and metal and shiny stuff. But the way you've done it suddenly humanizes him. Like I'm actually interested in him because I can see that human side.
Yeah, exactly. The bulky armor is very Space Marines and very Warhammer, but I think having that contrasted with the fabric just brings a little bit of visual interest. Metal can be really high contrast because it's shiny, so that means you've got really bright brights and really dark darks. And this can also distract with all the glowing elements as well.
Growing up in Thailand and going to like the royal palace and stuff, like gold and this sort of shape of like that lotus, that is a classically royal thing.
Yeah, I picked a few references to use and they all seem to have that sort of shape behind them as well. With the silver, you can see that I tend towards purple colors, mostly because it's reflecting the environment and the environment is very purple. But also I think purple is a very magical sort of colour.
Royal.
And very royal as well because he's an emperor. So I feel like that was quite fitting as well. So you can see if I've got something glowing on the left, I will add something glowing on the right. So if the bird's eyes are glowing on the right, then the conduits are glowing on the left. Just limiting the colour palette to mostly yellows and purples and using this spotlight lighting effect to phase out the background really helped with making this composition work. I kept the description on the side of my page just as a reference for me to use, but then it was actually you, Ariel, who suggested just to keep it there and make it look like a page of a book. So I decided to do that. Make it look a little bit nicer so we can use the artwork on its own, but also with the description on the side
love
as well.
that. What do you think, Alicia? Does your artwork do justice to Dave's history of Warhammer?
I think there's only one person who can answer that.
I cannot wait to see what you've done. You've made some artworks of something and the Emperor. That's what I've picked up so far.
Yes.
Yeah, it sure is a something.
Nailed it. All right, Ariel.
It was called The Great Unclean One. Does that tell you anything?
I know exactly what that is.
Okay, good, because I don't.
Literally down to every pustule what he looks like. I love that! That's so fun! No, that's really cool. Nurgle is depicted as being whimsical and fun, and I don't know if that was in your description, but they're super like chill. And this is the chillest looking, gross, like grotesque, bloated demon ever. I love it. It's so fun.
Oh, thank you.
Now that's really cool.
Does he look like the intended character?
He doesn't look too different, to be honest. Aside from the Great Unclean One has massively like tree trunk like stumpy legs, but they're very short, and his belly kind of slides along the ground. He's that big.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of sunk into himself. But other than that, like he's got the vibe. He's got immaculate vibes.
Yes.
He's great. He's great and he's unclean. That's all you need.
And
right?
it's the smile. The smile is so perfect because he's such a jolly guy. Oh, that is so interesting. I love the duality. Because you've got him in the robes and in the armor. It's almost like his psychic sort of image is fading away, leaving the man underneath.
Like his mid shapeshift.
Yeah, that's really cool. You've got pretty much every element in there. Like you've got the two-headed bird, the Imperial Eagle, which I believe would be a cyber eagle. You can have feathers on a robot.
Okay. All right. It's a very convincing robot.
Yeah, the golden armor, the glowing eyes. He looks regal. His throne's pretty big. Cables. It looks like Big E. He's a little less spiky. That's what I'll say. The Big E is very spiky. I think you've done it, like, the part of the fun of this is seeing how other people realize a character. Yeah. And if you said to me, like, Warhammer, who is this? Everyone would just say, oh, it's the Emperor.
Perfect. That's
like,
exactly
absolutely.
what I wanted. Yeah.
So you both have done awesome jobs. They're really cool artworks. And I think that anyone out there who's familiar with Warhammer, you're going to see them. And if you say Warhammer, what's this? You'll be like, oh, it's the Nurgle Demon. Ah, it's the Emperor. I actually have been preparing like a playlist of videos for you to watch on the lore. So I'll be sending that to you. I've also, there's like 75 books. You can borrow them if you want. Don't worry about getting them back to me anytime soon. But enjoy it.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks as always to our patrons. Love you guys. I'm always looking forward to our next masterclass, next tutorial. If you're interested in supporting our channel, a link is in the description. You can look at our different Patreon tier. We love seeing you guys on Discord as well, so join us there, and that's free. But thank you all so much for your financial support. You're the reason why we can afford to make these videos. Thank you. See you in the next video.
Inside Out.
So that's Nurgle. He's a god, and a great unclean one are like his greatest champions. The big, it's like a massive demon or an archangel.
Right.
But here is Sassy Nurgle.